Não, espera quando essa máquinas vão dar.
Gosh, guys, we just had a 4.4 at Campi Flegrei, another 4.4 after the strong one that we had last year. But now it's accelerating. We've had this massive earthquake swarm in February. And then we had, if you look at the list here, we had a 3.0 on March 11th, and then it was basically a continuous earthquake swarm until that 4.4 that happened at night again in Italy, in Pozzuoli at 1:25 a.m. guys, shallow depth, only 3 kilometers, but that was not it. If we look at that, just basically seconds later a 1.1, seconds later a 1.0, seconds, a few minutes later 1.6 and 1.1, and they keep coming as we speak. And these are only the ones, magnitude 1. It's probably way more already. And let's have a look at the epicenter of the 4.4, guys. This is not good. And we have seen the accelerated ground uplift. I've made a video about this. It's now 3 centimeters a month. When we had the 4.4 last year, it was only 2 centimeters. So there is the epicenter, guys. It's not a big surprise. It's in this area, Pozzuoli, Solfatara, in the area where we have seen most of the earthquakes of that massive earthquake swarm, and also in the area where we are seeing the highest concentration of land uplift. And you know, I'm working on a video right now to show you the graphs and the data of what is really going on at Campi Flegrei and how frightening that is. But I'm just not able to finish this video because things happening in between. So look at the epicenter, via Napoli, very close to the water, but in an area that is not surprising at all, guys. And if we look at this here, you know, we had the 2.6 on March 10th. So look at these earthquakes. It's basically been something between 30 and 40 earthquakes per day, but now this strong earthquakes. And what is the latest that we hear from Pozzuoli? The mayor of Pozzuoli has released a press release that the Vesuvius Observatory has informed him about this earthquake at 1:25 a.m. And he's letting the people know there is a seismic swarm underway. Well, I think they've been aware of this over the last few days. And he says it's 0.3 kilometers located near Via Naples at a depth of 2.5 kilometers. And they're giving telephone numbers where you can report damages. So he says, considering the magnitude of this earthquake and what they have stated, the municipal administration and together with the civil protection and the community of Pozzuoli, they're following this earthquake swarm closely. But we know what that means, right? They can't really tell us too much. So what we see from the news is that there is significant damage from this 4.4 earthquake. Collapsed attic, that's what the newspapers say. They pulled a person out alive in Pozzuoli. So it seems that buildings were crashing over people. And what the newspapers are reporting, that people are in fear, people are in panic, people are in cars, they're ready to leave the epicenter area. And there are reports of damage. And guys, what about raising the freaking alert level now? Evacuate the red zone. I mean, how much more needs to happen? This is my personal opinion, but you know, many scientists have shared that opinion as well. And I mean, look at the pictures here of the damages. And you know, Giuseppe Di Natale just stated, because some were saying, oh, this is not even as bad as it was in the 80s. It's worse than it was in the 80s. And I have proof for that. And I said in my monstrosity video that I will probably release soon, I will show that. But he says the absolute uplift compared to the 1980s is 40 centimeters higher than in the 1980s, but the caprock layer now has only a third of the strength left that it had in the 1980s to keep the lid on, to keep the magma from reaching the surface. So this earthquake was felt strongly. That's what the reports are telling us in Naples and its metropolitan area. And firefighters, municipal police cars, civil protection of various municipalities are collecting reports of damage following this earthquake. And there you see it's a collapsed room or something like this. But also, this is pretty serious if you ask me. That's probably the attic that they were mentioning. But also like a lot of stuff like stucco and outside stuff on homes fell to the ground, has damaged cars in Bagnoli. That's a neighborhood in the western area of Naples. So far, the first reports are coming in, no super serious damage. And they're saying that they will give us an update today on the situation. But in the Viale della Liberazione, the Liberation Street, so to speak, in the Agnano area, there's also the NATO headquarters. There's a queue of dozens of cars with frightened people that are ready to leave the area. And the fire brigade reports the collapse of a floor in a house in Pozzuoli. That's what I just mentioned. But work is underway to see if there's even more people involved. So this is absolutely crazy what is going on there. And there have been warnings. And what the newspapers are writing, the earthquake at Campi Flegrei, at the Flegreian fields, the burning fields. And you see a video here, I'll show this to you shortly, with the damages that are coming. It looks like stucco from cars. It's terrorizing the city. That's what people are saying. It was felt in every district of Naples, of the capital, and in many municipalities from Pozzuoli to Portici. It was very, very strong. And here you see the graph, how this fort was outlying there. Absolutely crazy. And also everyone who felt it was reporting that this earthquake was quite long. Quite long. You know, the earthquake swarms, it's been basically rumbling all February, all March there. Then we have the increased CO2 levels that have been found in homes. People were feeling dizzy, almost fainting. Then Giuseppe De Natale says the absolute uplift of the ground at Campi Flegrei is 40 centimeters higher than in the 1980s. The uplift speed is slower at that time, but you know, the crisis now has lasted for 18 years compared to the crisis in the 80s that only lasted for 2 years. And interesting thing is, whenever Di Natale, the volcanologist and the research director at the INGV, he is talking to the press and he's being upset and he's giving warnings. I have reported about this. Whenever he speaks, he says, or he makes it clear that he does not express the opinion of the institution of the INGV, although he works for them and they're the body that surveils Campi Flegrei. He basically goes against, it seems like, the official opinion. He says, I'm talking in a personal capacity and based on my scientific knowledge, and that I'm telling you what's happening at Campi Flegrei. And he was asked what could be the reason for this increase in the land rise to 2 to 3 centimeters per month. And he says, well, the uplift rate has varied often during this bradyseismic phase that has begun in 2005, 2006. But this of the last few weeks is one of the highest values observed. It's lower than the rate that they had in the 1980s. And he says, in my opinion, the uplift rate that we're observing today, like from 2006 till today, depends on the variation in the flow of magmatic gases that are coming from the main magma reservoir at a depth of approximately 8 kilometers. And they have found another one at only 3.9 kilometers. And he says in the 1980s, the uplift rate was much higher because according to the results that they have obtained from research group, the subsequent rapid heating of the aquifers was stronger due to direct contact with the magma. So he says, what is to be expected in the coming months? And he says, since the 1980s, we have observed that the seismicity rate increases with the increase in uplift speed. So furthermore, the seismicity rate increases with the increase in cumulative uplift. So today we are over 40 centimeters higher in absolute uplift than in 1984, and this is why we have higher seismicity, although the uplift speed is lower than in the 80s. But he said, however, we should expect a further increase in seismicity because the uplift speed has increased right now significantly. And he says this is obvious if the uplift does not slow down or end in a short time. And now he said that before the 4.4 now happened. And then he was asked how similar is the current crisis to what happened in the 1980s. There was a magma intrusion in the 1980s. And he says the current crisis is very similar to that in the 1980s, but it's amplified. If you look at the February earthquake swarm, that has never been seen before. Over 1,815 earthquakes in 28 days, with one day where it was so intense, more than 800 earthquakes in one day. So he says it's amplified than compared to the 80s. Like earthquakes are more frequent and of greater magnitude than in the 80s. The ground level is over 40 centimeters higher at the point of maximum uplift. The variations in gas emissions, especially CO2 and H2S, are much greater than then. Even the duration is much, much longer than back in the 80s. 18 years have passed since then. The other crisis lasted 2 years. And then he was asked, what is your advice for those who live in the area? And he said the fundamental advice in an emergency like this, it's always to strictly follow what the civil protection is saying. And he says the main urgency is to defend the people from the earthquakes right now. Yeah, that's been confirmed by the 4.4. And he says everyone should be certain, especially in the most at-risk areas that are defined by this red zone for the Brady seismic, that is a little bit smaller than the red zone for the volcanic crisis, for the volcanic emergency plan. They should be aware that the building that they live in should be capable of withstanding earthquakes up to magnitude 5. They should check on that. And they could occur within a couple of kilometers in that area of this red zone at depths of only 2 to 3 kilometers. That's why they could do a lot of damage and be felt very widely. So he says you have to make sure that your building, absolutely sure that your building does not have structural problems or degradation or evident damage caused by this previous seismicity. And now we have it. Something has collapsed already. So scary things going on in Italy right now, I tell you this. Yeah, and while we're speaking, another 1.2 earthquake has just happened. So it keeps going. I'll keep you updated, guys. Stay tuned. There's also weird earthquake swarms in Iceland. So I think the eruption is on its way probably too. But this year, we have to keep an eye on it. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to support the channel, check the links in the description. You can join as a monthly member to support the channel, and you'll get something for that. Behind the scenes videos from me, outtakes, funny stuff, serious stuff, all that. And buy me a coffee or two at my buymeacoffee.com/silky site. The link is in the description of this video, guys. Leave it a like, share it with your friends, and become a subscriber. Welcome to everyone that's new. I see you soon, guys. Bye.